Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey there, friends, and welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the dining room of the Bible Bistro today, and I've got everything wiped down. This is COVID-free Bible study. I've even got a mask over the microphone today so that you won't get the dreaded COVID-19 bug. Come on in here and sit down, get yourself something hot or cold to drink. Let's study the Bible this week as we look at Psalm 144. Today we're just going to look at the first 3 verses in Psalm 144. This is what I like to call the hands psalm, because we have hands showing up all over the place here in this psalm. Well, I say all over the place. It shows up several times. It shows up here in verse 1, teach my hands to war. It shows up again in verse 7, send thine hand from above. Then it shows up again in verse 8, their hand is a right hand of falsehood. And then in verse 11, the hand of strange children, their right hand, both in verse 11 there. So hands are in this psalm. I call it the hand psalm. This is definitely a psalm of David. The title actually says that, a psalm of David. And so we're going to read today verses 1 through 3 and treat all this week Psalm 144. Now, if you were expecting this to be uploaded last night, I apologize. I had a little bit of a snafu over the weekend, and so that snafu has resolved, and I am trying to catch up with all my recordings. And so today I'm recording on a Monday. This is the 9th, and so I'm going to upload it on the 9th. So this is as close to as live as you're going to get with Daily Dose Radio. Well, today we're looking at verses 1 through 3. Blessed be the Lord my strength, which teacheth my hands to war and my fingers to fight. My goodness and my fortress, my high tower, and my deliverer, my shield, and he in whom I trust, who subdueth my people under me. Lord, what is man that thou takest knowledge of him, or the son of man that thou take account of him? So we have here lots of stuff that we recognize, right? I mean, this is so familiar. That first verse, though, is a little different. Blessed be the Lord my strength. Now that is not that different, but then the next phrase is, which teacheth my hands to war and my fingers to fight. You see, our fingers and our hands need to know how to war and how to fight because we have an enemy, and he seeks to abuse us. And so we need to know. We need to be able to fight him and stand in the power of the Lord and in the strength of his might against our enemy. And how do we do that? We do that by understanding and being able to use God's word. We need to be able to divide it rightly and understand it so that we can use it as our sword. We stand with the sword of the Spirit strapped to our thighs, just like what is said of Solomon's soldiers there in the Song of Songs. In chapter 3, they have their swords strapped to their thighs. They're ready for battle. And so we too must be ready for battle in our day. Teach me. So that would be a good prayer for us to pray is, Lord, teach my hands to war and my fingers to fight. You'll notice verse 2, and you read verse 2 and you go, where have I read that before? Well, we found this in lots of places, but it begins principally in Psalm 18. We have it in lots of other places in parts throughout the Psalter, but here we have it again in 144, and I'm going to take us back to Psalm 18. If you look at verse 2 in Psalm 18, you'll find many of these same themes. The fortress, the high tower, the shield, principally. And then he mixes in some other things here. And so what we have is very Davidic. We know this language. We say, aha, this is of David because this is his words. This is how he writes his poetry. And then in verse 3, what do we have? We have another one of those very familiar verses. Lord, what is man that thou takest knowledge of him? Where would we find that? Well, we find that in Psalm 8. Psalm 8, verse 4. And so we find that now we have these themes coming back into the end of the Psalter that we started the Psalter with. So in Psalm 8, in Psalm 18, we're going to see Psalm 18 2 more times. We're going to see several other psalms mentioned as we talk about the new song. All that's going to come up this week. So I hope you'll join me all week long as we study together Psalm 144 here on the Bible Bistro. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.